Today, we will be examining Onani Master Kurosawa, also known as Masturbation Master Kurosawa. Wait a minute, did I read that correctly? Now I know what you all are thinking. Masturbation Master Kurosawa? What the hell is up with that title? How can this manga possibly have depth? It sounds more like a hentai than a manga. Hear me out for a second. Diverse and unorthodox plots have always been a common trend around manga. Whether it be children saving the earth or a gangster teacher, the main point of unorthodox plots is to put realistic characters in an unrealistic or hyperbolic situation. By doing this, it can further emphasize character development and provide better commentary than more realistic or orthodox plots. We should judge Onani Master Kurosawa not based on how quote-unquote weird the plot is, rather focus on the coming-of-age developments of characters within the story. Never judge a book by its cover. Onani Master Kurosawa goes much deeper than its plot. Now that that's out of the way, let's get started with a brief introduction of Onani Master Kurosawa. Onani Master Kurosawa is a short 4-volume manga written by Issei Katsura. The story revolves around the 14-year-old Kakeru Kurosawa. On the outside, it seems that Kurosawa is just an antisocial student not wanting to interact with anyone. However, as we learn, this is not the case. Every day, after all students leave school and return home, Kurosawa goes into the seldomly used girls' bathroom to masturbate. He uses erotic thoughts of his female classmates to paint his own version of reality within the stall. Kurosawa makes sure that he's never caught. He has a perfect plan, waiting in the library until everyone leaves to perform his daily activity. However, this all changes when Aya Kitahara, a girl who is picked on by classmates, catches a glimpse of Kurosawa exiting the girls' washroom. Contrary to her shy demeanor, Aya Kitahara shows a different side of herself when they meet and forces Kurosawa to commit acts such as ejaculating on the clothes of the girls who bullied her in seek of revenge. She basically blackmails Kurosawa to get her justice while both of them remain anonymous as suspects for these actions. From then on, the story follows the relationship between the antisocial Kurosawa and the timid and bullied girl Aya Kitahara. Now, let's get on to the analysis. Onani Master Kurosawa is one of the best coming-of-age stories I have ever read. Here's why. When first examining Onani Master Kurosawa, we can see many ideas present. There are 4 main ideas branching off the coming-of-age theme, that being adolescent struggle, imagination versus reality, consequences of one's action, and intention versus impact. Let's talk about the first idea that Katsura provides commentary on, adolescent struggle. Growing up is not easy. People in adolescence must face interpersonal conflicts such as searching for an identity, adapting to social norms, and understanding relationships. It is also within the adolescent period where your body begins to change. Adapting to social norms and understanding relationships is a recurring idea throughout the manga. There is no better character to harbor these ideas as is Kitahara. Kitahara, who is bullied and pushed around by other girls in the class, believes that it is not fair that this is happening. Why do I only feel sad? Why aren't the other girls getting punished? Thus, she seeks revenge and justice. To her, this is her way of resolving interpersonal conflicts. This train of thought is where many adolescents struggle to come to a resolve with. Kurosawa, on the other hand, starts off with the idea of the physical struggles in adolescence. He is what we call a guy who is addicted to masturbation. However, we shouldn't analyze this idea at face value. Rather, the physical development and masturbation of Kurosawa is a catalyst to explore the idea of imagination versus reality. When you are a kid, everything seems bright and colorful. You believe that everyone on this earth is a good human being and that your dreams come true. We cannot differentiate between imagination and reality yet. While this train of thought disappears when entering adolescence, hope is placed as a substitute. Instead of believing that your dreams will come true, we become hopeful that our dreams will come true. Thus brings in the introduction of the idea of imagination versus reality. Kurosawa is someone who is unable to differentiate between reality and imagination. To him, his imaginations are his reality. When he masturbates to his female classmates, the vivid imagery of him overpowering others becomes reality to him. He firmly believes that he is greater than others and undergoes a superiority complex throughout the entire series. To him, all his female classmates are below him. However, we see the first crack of development when he meets Takigawa and Nagaoka. Takigawa is an extroverted and popular girl that everyone in the class likes. Takigawa is an interesting character brought forth by Katsura. She was a shy girl who studied all the time and had no friends back in her childhood days. When she entered middle school, she didn't want to be alone anymore and decided to wear makeup and become extroverted. Fast forward to today, she feels that she belongs in a more timid and quiet setting rather than an extroverted one. Nagaoka, on the other hand, is written by Katsura to be the complete opposite of Takigawa. Though Nagaoka seems childish and innocent on the outside, talking about anime and being labeled as a nerd in the class, I strongly believe that on the inside he is the most mature. Nagaoka doesn't care about what others think of him. To him, if he and his friends are happy, that's all that matters. Fuck what others think of him. Why does social norm and popularity matter? It's all a facade to him. He's also someone who deeply cares for his friends and cherishes the moments they spend time together. This is shown time and time again when Nagaoka invites Kurosawa to hang out repeatedly after Kurosawa denies multiple times. Nagaoka is the only person in the series who sees people for who they are, rather than what the classroom labels them as. He doesn't care if Kurosawa is labeled as a loner. He will invite him as a friend. Now comes the interesting dynamic when Kurosawa meets Takigawa. Takigawa starts talking to Kurosawa in the library because they are both keen readers. Takigawa loves books and is comfortable being her true self when talking to Kurosawa. Kurosawa starts developing a crush on Takigawa. Before, Kurosawa was able to take on any revenge task that Kitahara asked him to do, whether that was to ejaculate on a classmate's shirt to embarrass them or to frame theft, it didn't matter. However, when Kitahara asks Kurosawa to get her revenge on Takigawa, Kurosawa initially refuses. But after realizing that Takigawa and Nagaoka have started dating, his heart breaks and he falls into the same train of thought as Kitahara. Kitahara also had a crush on Nagaoka, creating the same parallel between Kurosawa and Kitahara. He starts hating Nagaoka, thinking, why is this the person Takigawa loves, and that it isn't fair. Thus, he executes revenge on Takigawa. Takigawa is mentally scarred by the situation and doesn't come to school for the next couple of days. The thought that all things must be fair is a premise that adolescents must overcome on their journey to adulthood. This thought incites the actions of both Kitahara and Kurosawa. Their revenge has some sense of justice to them. At this point in the story, both Kitahara and Kurosawa cannot differentiate between imagination and reality. They can only see through the lens of their imagination that all things are fair. Both of them are the same character. That all changes when Kurosawa stumbles across Takigawa's art project. When executing the task of ejaculating on another student's artwork, he opens Takigawa's locker out of curiosity for what she drew. Kurosawa thinks to himself that it's probably a dress or a collection design, but when he opens it, he sees a drawing of him, Nagaoka, Takigawa, and Kitahara during the school field trip. This is where the coming of age of Kurosawa occurs. He is no longer blinded by his own imaginative views. Before, in his mind, Takigawa was just some demon trying to hurt Kurosawa by dating Nagaoka. Kurosawa projected his imagination to reality, thinking that it's the same. However, he comes to a realization that Takigawa is actually a completely different person than who he thought she was, and is someone who cares for Kurosawa and cherishes the moments that she, Nagaoka, and Kurosawa had together. He is finally able to see that your thoughts about other people don't reflect who they truly are. To quote what Miyamoto Musashi said to Matahachi in Vagabond, You were looking at some version of me you created over the past years. Kurosawa falls to the ground after coming to the realization of what he had just done. Before, he was able to commit all these heinous acts because of the thought that everyone else was in the wrong. But now that he can differentiate between imagination and reality, the burden of all his actions start piling onto him at once. The fact that his actions caused harm and potentially ruined someone else was something that he now had to shoulder. Thus, this brings us to the last idea explored by Katsura, the consequences of one's actions and intentions versus impact. To mature from child to man, one must understand that society is not fair and is not black and white. One must also understand that even though his intentions could be good, the end result or impact is what matters. Kurosawa matures when he realizes that the impact of his actions have caused unrecoverable harm to many of his classmates. Though his original intention was to seek justice, his actions could have potentially caused trauma to many of the girls he harassed. At this point in the story, no one has been caught of these sex offenses yet. Kurosawa could probably get away with it if he just laid low, as no one would expect him. But what he decides to do next becomes my favorite panel of the manga and shows the maturation of Kurosawa. He goes up to everyone in the class and announces that he was the one who committed all the sexual harassment acts and apologizes. The sheer amount of resolve to do what Kurosawa has just done makes this the most impressive panel of the manga. By doing this, he reveals to Takigawa that he was the one who sexually harassed her and will ruin their relationship and be permanently shunned by the entire class. This action shows the maturation of Kurosawa. He knows that what he's done will either never be forgiven or take a long time to be forgiven, but feels the need to be held accountable and responsible for all of these actions and wants to turn a new leaf in his life. He owes the truth to Takigawa after taking away her innocence. However, even though Kurosawa has become a mature and thoughtful person, that doesn't take away from the accountability of his actions. Sexual harassment is a very serious crime. The actions of Kurosawa could have seriously been detrimental to the students in his class. For the next year, Kurosawa is the target of all bullies. He is constantly beat up, and Masturbation Master Kurosawa is written all over his desk. The accountability of one's actions is what separates Kurosawa as a man from a child. Kurosawa will go down the hard path of constantly getting beat up, no matter how long, until people are able to forgive him of his crimes. He will keep apologizing until he is forgiven. However, when you stick a needle into a piece of wood, even when you take it out, there is still a scar in the piece of wood. Results speak louder than intention, and Kurosawa gets that it might take a while or even never for the wounds to heal. Even Nagaoka, who loves everyone, turns a blind eye to Kurosawa for the first couple of months. Takigawa can't believe it and looks away from Kurosawa. Things start to change, however, after a couple of months when Nagaoka becomes the first person to forgive Kurosawa and starts hanging out with him. After a long while, Takigawa comes to terms with her own problems of not being able to forgive Kurosawa, and the three become what they used to cherish. In the end, Kurosawa is matured and surrounded by friends, while Kitahara is still stuck at stage 1. She is antisocial and still holds on to the belief to seek revenge. When Kurosawa and Kitahara talk for the last time, she exclaims, "I can't do that. I'm not as strong as you." The correct path to take is also the hardest one to take. Kitahara was never able to walk onto the same maturation path as Kurosawa. She wasn't strong enough to come to terms with the consequences of her actions. This draws an interesting dynamic between Kurosawa and Kitahara. Kurosawa, who was surrounded by friends, was only able to take the hard path of taking accountability for his actions because he was able to empathize and care for his friends. Kitahara, on the other hand, is unable to take this path as she has no one to rely on. She's not surrounded by any friends, and if she were to take this path, why? A single lonely person is too weak to walk this path and accept the consequences that ensues. The ending of Onani Master Kurosawa is a rather happy ending, where everyone meets up for a class reunion. Kitahara has been locked up in her room ever since that day, but Kurosawa finally convinced her to get out into the real world and live. That's all for my analysis. In my opinion, Onani Master Kurosawa has been one of the best coming-of-age mangas I have ever read. I firmly believe that we should not judge this manga based on its unorthodox plot, rather focus on the development of the characters within the series. I'm thinking of doing another video on the analysis of Nakaoka and Takigawa. What do you guys think? If you disagreed with my analysis on the manga, feel free to comment down below, and if you liked it, make sure to subscribe. I'm always open to new discussions. This has been Hyacinth. Peace.